One of the greatest storytellers of our time.
150 million records sold.
And the Golden Globe.
Grammy.
The Oscar goes to...
A voice who's defined all of our generations.
A 20-time Grammy Award winner, an Academy Award winner, a Tony Award winner.
The one, the only, the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen. Hear that you were on set all the time, anytime that you weren't touring.
All the actors were great because, I mean, it's got to be weird to put the guy you're playing sitting his stupid ass in the chair right next to the director. The movie's basically about somebody who knows what they're doing 3 hours a day, but has no clue as to what they're doing the other 21.
Bruce has been approached many times before to have movies made about his life. This is the first time he's agreed to one. Was that a lot of pressure?
You know, we need to see that our heroes are life-size, and so much of the work that these two men have done together and that Bruce's music is about that. It's about shaking hands with who you are.
Jeremy Allen White's just a rock star, you know. He just reads that way.
I always wanted Jeremy White to inhabit Bruce's emotional truth, his essence, his spirit. But my God, there are moments that he looks just like Bruce in the early 80s.
Quite a bit better, actually.
And the fact that, Bruce, you had this strong vision, and you held to that vision even though everyone around you was saying, this doesn't make any sense. Nobody saw it yet, but you did, and you went for it anyway.
Throughout my career, I've had a deep-seated fear of having the opportunity and then not getting it right.
If you could tell your younger self back then, 42 years ago, that a film would be made about it one day, what would you say? How's everyone doing tonight? I am not only excited for you all to see this movie, but I am specifically excited for one of the greatest panels in all of music and film that we are about to have. You've all been told that there's a special guest. Well, there's not only one special guest, there's not only two, there are multiple special guests tonight. And I am so excited for you all to meet them. For one, in my opinion, as I said, one of the greatest panels in all of music and film. But can we give a second to thank every creative who worked on this incredible movie? Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Every actor, every creative, sound engineer, gaffer. My name is Daniel, and my goal and mission in my life right now is to shine a light on the people and stories behind music, movies, and media. And what I loved about this film is it isn't just a movie. It's an experience with raw emotion that talks about something in creativity that doesn't get brought up enough. The courage to follow your vision, even when nobody else sees it. And tonight, we all have the privilege of sitting down with the incredible creatives, actors, director, and the boss himself. That's right, the people who have poured everything they have into telling one of the most powerful stories of the year about creativity. Are they all ready? Amazing. So it's time we bring them out, right? Yeah. I want to ask y'all that please cheer for these incredible people, but especially the last one. I am so excited. First, the man who wrote, directed, and produced Deliver Me From Nowhere, an award-winning filmmaker. Please welcome Scott Cooper.
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I love IMAX.
Next, an extraordinary actress whose performances have made her one of the most fearless talents of her generation, Odessa Young. Next, I'm excited to welcome one of the greatest actors of our time, the man who transforms into every role he takes on. Please give it up for Jeremy Strong. Next, a legend whose partnership with Bruce has defined music history. Producer, collaborator, and creative confidant, Jon Landau. And if you're not on your feet already, you're about to be. One of the greatest storytellers of our time, a poet, an artist, a voice who's defined all of our generations, the one, the only, the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen.
Thank you all. I just want to quickly say that Jeremy Allen White, our other Bruce, fell ill earlier today and couldn't join us. And he sends his regards, and he's terribly sorry. But I hope you liked his performance.
First of all, thank you all for being a part of this amazing panel as our special guest for everyone here today. It's officially been over 42 years since the release of the iconic album Nebraska. Since we've all watched this movie, is there any, I want to ask each of you, is there any particular message or feeling you want audiences to carry with them after watching? Scott, let's start with you.
Yeah, you know, when I told Bruce when I first set out to write this, I said, my hope is that people go into the movie thinking it's, of course, a film about Bruce Springsteen. But when they leave, they realize that it's a story about themselves. Because so many of us are suffering like Bruce suffered. And I think as someone who is a filmmaker always in search of authenticity and the truth, it's really about trying to defy expectations like Bruce did instead of chasing the roar of arenas and hit songs and have the courage to look inward and wrestle with how honest you can be in your work. So that was really my goal, is to tell a chapter in Bruce Springsteen's life that you might not know, and to say that if Bruce Springsteen can get the right type of help that he got, that if you're suffering, you can too.
Love that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, the picture, Scott really weaved together 3 or 4 different themes. The picture's about, one's the making of a record, Nebraska at the time, which was, it's might be harder to imagine now, but at the time there were no lo-fi records. People tried to make their records sound as good or as slick as they could. So I didn't know what to do myself when I had the record in my bedroom, you know. Scott weaved that story into the story about, also, it's obviously a story about depression and about trying to find your way through that. I had a long run of mental illness in my family that ran through my cousins, aunts, my father. We had 5 houses on one block, all next to one another. In every house, somebody was sick. And, you know, so I think what do we want the audience to leave with? It's a bit of a melancholy story, but I think, as Scott said, you know, the idea like, hey, if you are in trouble, and I know a lot of people suffer silently out there, that you don't have to. So that's important to me.
I guess from my point of view, if you leave with one impression from the film, and I want to thank Jeremy, who portrays me, is the notion that as far as the music is concerned and the music business, it's all about the management. That is the message that you should be taking from the film. I also want to just say this is one of the last of these that we're going to do, and I want to thank Scott for presenting a very sanitized, really almost saintly version of myself. And to do that, he had to delete all the times that I stole all the money. Completely gone, you know. So
It was only a few times.
Thank you so much. But beyond that, I think what Bruce was just saying was trying to switch from the ridiculous to the more serious, in my case. I think the film, for me, it was the first time I saw it assembled in a director's cut. Is hopefully something that reaches a spiritual level. And I think that from the moment you hear the great Sam Cooke singing it, Last Mile of the Way through the end of the film, I think it's very unexpected and very deep and very moving. And I've sat through the film 11 or 12 times now, and I just couldn't be happier. It's an incredible, truthful, honest record of the events of that year in our little world and what we were doing, what we were trying to do. So I always want to extend my thanks to Scott for doing a job so filled with integrity and artfulness, you know. So thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Jon.
Well, you know, I feel like great films, great stories are about passing through some sort of threshold, some crucible of change. And this movie is about that. It's sort of about, you know, the only way out is through. I love that it's a movie about the search for authenticity. It's a movie about Bruce, the man, you know, life size, not on a grand scale. You know, we need to see that our heroes are life size, and they're you know, they don't have a cape, they're not bulletproof. And is it in Texas that the fair happens on the road trip?
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying in Texas. They say you got to dance with the one that brung you. And I feel like, to me, the kind of spiritual credo of this movie is that, and so much of the work that these two men have done together, and that, you know, Bruce's music is about that. It's about shaking hands with who you are and where you come from, and that's why it's so powerful and healing. And Scott was able to capture that in a film, which, you know, in 2025 is just an amazing thing, and I feel so grateful to have been part of it.
I think it's always hard to say what you hope other people will take away, but I know what I've taken away from it in the experience of reading Warren Zanes' book, in making this movie, and now in seeing this movie, and then also in listening to Bruce's entire discography for my whole life. I think that it's that the greatest art is not made in suffering, it is made as a reckoning with suffering. And that is what I love about this story.
Love that. Bruce, the level of care you have with everything you do is phenomenal. I hear stories about you sitting in every single seat before a show just to make sure everyone has the best sound they can. And then also on top of it, with this film in particular, I hear that you were on set all the time, anytime that you weren't touring. Where does that level of care come from?
It was pretty obnoxious, really. But
I love
but
it.
I have to. But Scott invited me, and Jeremy wonderfully tolerated me. So that was a nice part of the project. I was on tour for when the guys first started shooting. Then when I got home, Scott said, "No, I want you to come down and just be there." And so. All the actors were great, because, I mean, it's got to be weird, put the guy you're playing sitting his stupid ass in the chair right next to the director, you know. But I had a lot of fun. It was a lovely experience and fun for me. And, you know, it's sort of, hey, I'm 31 and I look like Jeremy Allen White. It's pretty good.
But just to follow up, I will say that having Bruce and Jon Landau available when I'm writing the screenplay, when I'm shooting the film, and editing is such a gift, because who better to give me and my collaborators insight into such a painful time than Bruce and Jon, because you can only read so much. Bruce's wonderful autobiography, Born to Run, or Warren's book, or many of the Marsh books. and on and on and on in videos, but until you really understand what someone's psychological insight is, you can't really make a picture about them. And Bruce and Jon gave me access that I could have only dreamed of. Quite honestly, when I first met them in New Jersey, I thought Bruce maybe would read a draft or two, maybe come by the set once, would perhaps see the picture once. And I'm so thankful that he came as often as he did, because it really changed my life. That the question that you asked was about Bruce's obsessive quality. Well, I think any artist has that. I certainly do, and I imagine Jeremy and Odessa do. I know actors that I work with frequently tell me that it's their obsessive nature that allows them to play the many characters that they do, all in a search, at least for me, and my pal that I'm referencing as an actor, really in a search for truth and honesty. And there is no more truthful or honest artist, American artist, than Bruce Springsteen. So I think that's hopefully what unites the two of us.
Well, what was remarkable that extends on what Scott's saying about Bruce is that Scott put together a group of people who all shared a similar approach, a similar commitment. And the commitment, I think, I observed on the part of everyone here and people not here, like the great Stephen Graham, who plays Bruce's father, and Gabby Hoffman, who plays his mother, and that remarkable boy who plays the young Bruce. And that's one of the greatest child acting performances I've ever seen. There's not an ounce of coyness or cloyingness or cuteness. It's so direct, you know. And when you see him on that bicycle coming down the street at the beginning of the film, you're just pulled right in. You know, he pulls you right in. And I think that there's a shared commitment to use a corny word, excellence, that united and bonded the group that you see here and the others, you know, so that everybody was just on the same wavelength, and everybody was always aiming for the same thing, you know, which is the truth, and to present it as artfully as each person was capable of doing. So that's why I'm so thrilled to have any association with to be in the film. That's it.
No, I was just going to say, you know, vis-a-vis these two being on set, you know, for any actors here, you can imagine that what that does is just really raises the stakes and raises the bar, and, you know, puts your feet to the fire in terms of you damn well better have a sense of conviction in what you're doing, a sense as much as possible of belief in what you're doing, and having internalized, you know, everything to be ready to walk onto that set to do what we had to do, you know, in front of them. So it was a wonderful gift to have to have them so open and available to us and collaborate with us. And it also was a gift in terms of just raising the ante, because I think that only helps actually in creative work.
Over the last few years, I've sat down with some of the greatest minds in all of music, and they've told me stories and given me some of the best tips that changed my entire perspective on creating. And I'm looking to give that to you, because I'm hoping that it can help you just as much as it helped me. My goal with Behind the Wall is to shine a light on the people stories behind music, movies, and media. It's to inspire the next generation of creatives, but it's also to create the platform that I wish I had when I first started making music, when I first started being creative, when I first started making videos. Behind the Wall has taught me so much on this journey, and I want to take these lessons that I've learned and help the next generation. So I put together 15 of the most important and impactful lessons that I've learned on my own journey from these people directly, from some of the greatest minds in all of music. People like Chris Martin of Coldplay, Benny Blanco, Ryan Tedder, Julia Michaels, Amy Allen, Bonnie McKee, Savan Kotecha. So many of the greatest minds in all of music, people that I had the pleasure and privilege of interviewing people like Ryan Tedder, who gave me one of the greatest pieces of advice that helped me on my own journey. People like Benny Blanco, who changed my entire perspective 6 years into making music. People like Marshmello, who taught me that as long as something sounds good to you, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And I'm looking to pass this knowledge on to you, which will be 15 lessons from the greatest minds in music, which will be in the description completely for free. And now let's return to Behind the Wall.
And Scott, what's interesting is even though Bruce has been approached many times before to have movies made about his life, this is the first time he's agreed to one, in a sense. Was that a lot of pressure as a director?
Yeah, an extreme amount of pressure. Whether it's, part of it, of course, is self-induced, but Bruce has, for 6 decades, entertained people, moved people, brought people a sense of spirituality that Jon was referencing all around the world, and I've seen it. And I've attended a lot of live concerts from some incredible artists, but none like Bruce Springsteen's. So the challenge with bringing this is that people tend to have ownership over Bruce. And people bring a lot of preconceived notions to a movie about Bruce Springsteen. And then you're making a film in a well-trod genre with a wonderful film that parodied all those movies called Walk Hard, the Do-It Cock Story, if you haven't seen that. So then you have all of that, and all of the cliches that come with it. So if you're making a film about America's most authentic artist, and essentially you're making a film about America's soul, as I know how painful that is for Bruce to hear, sitting next to me, because he's the most humble of people I know, but it's the truth, then yes, the bar is very high. It's always high for me when I make a film, but particularly high now because, most importantly, I wanted his fans, of course, to see the Bruce that they've known and loved for 6 decades. But even more important than that, because I've come to really love Bruce Springsteen and Jon Landau as family members, I wanted the movie to be a truthful representation for them.
And Scott's ability to capture working class life was something that really appealed to me, and the fact that he didn't want to make a standard biopic, that was really important. It was just going to be a year and a half out of my life. He had a great idea for the story that he drew partly from the book and partly from a memoir that I wrote. And the picture that he described to me the first time we met is the picture that's on the screen. So he just did a really honorable job, and he's very humble also.
What was that?
I was talking about Scott.
And Bruce, you famously were watching The Bear and saw Jeremy Allen White's performance and said, "This is someone who I want to play me." And also, Scott, I heard that that Jeremy was a little apprehensive about taking the role because he wasn't a singer. He didn't know how to play guitar at the time. But you said that he had qualities that you couldn't teach.
Yeah, well, that's all true. I mean, Jeremy has, he shares Bruce's quiet intensity.
There's 2 Jeremys.
Yes. Yes, there are. Jeremy Allen White, and as I've said publicly, he has something that you don't learn in the actor's studio, and that's swagger. Bruce has that kind of blue-collar physicality that I respond to and know so well from my own life. But no, speaking for Jeremy White, it's incredibly daunting for him as an actor. He'll play a lot of cops, and firefighters, and journalists in his career, but only once will you play someone like Bruce Springsteen, and he's only 31 years old, 32. So going forward, he'll always be associated with that, and whatever people think about that performance. So yeah, it's incredibly daunting for someone like Jeremy to play Bruce.
I saw The Bear, and he just had the internal intensity, and the camera read that from him really well. And I knew that was going to be the basis for the character in the film, and he was really the first guy that I thought of, and I didn't think of a number two, and I think we might have talked about him the first day we met, or
Yeah, we did.
very shortly thereafter, you know. And he's a great guy, and he did such a lovely job. And it's a cliche, but Jeremy Allen White's just a rock star, you know. He just reads that way, you know, his physicality, the way he moves, the way, the intensity he has. So it was, I was really happy that he took the part.
And I'll just add that I've seen, obviously, so much footage that I would send to Jeremy of Bruce from usually around 80, 81, before Nebraska, 79. And there are some performances that are absolutely spot on. And I sent one to you yesterday where there's a clip of Bruce singing Born to Run, and then Jeremy White. And we never wanted the film to be about imitation or mimicry. I always wanted Jeremy White to inhabit Bruce's emotional truth, his essence, his spirit. But my God, there are moments that he looks just like Bruce in the early 80s.
Well,
Quite a bit better, actually. But
Scott is an actor's director, and I was talking to the wonderful actress Gabby Hoffman, who plays Bruce's mom, Adele, who was just the most wonderful person. And it was one of the first days of shooting, and I just wound up chatting with her. I didn't know her. I'd never seen her perform, but she'd already done some terrific little piece of work. And she says, yeah, this is going to be a good one for me. I said, why? She said, well, you got two kinds of directors, the ones who understand actors and the ones who don't. This one does. And what you see in the film, first of all, the casting is so down to the smallest role, like the bartender in the Chinese bar, or the woman who is the manager at Odessa's, at Faye's diner, who just appear on the screen for 30 seconds. But every one of them makes such a lovely impression, you know, and they're so human. And I was sitting with Scott, and we were going through one of the early drafts of the script, and I think I know a fair amount about film. You know, actually, I think I know a
Johnny
fair
was a
amount
film
about
critic.
everything.
Yeah, when we met, you were a film critic.
Film critic for Rolling Stone.
But so I'm reading the script, and I say to Scott, geez, I don't know, this dialogue is a little, I don't know, is there enough here? This character is saying enough? And he said, John, talking to me like I'm 5 years old now, and he says, see, there's the script, and then what we do next is we bring in the actors. And so you write the script for the actors, and then they're gonna come in and finish the job, you know, because the rest of what you're looking for is in their faces and in their bodies and in what they do with that. And I thought to myself, oh, that's what actors do. That was a good thing to learn at the age of 78.
But also the texture, you know, these guys being there, you know, you find ways to do this in everything as an actor, and you have to really, you know, you take the contours of what's given in the material, and then you try and deepen it and strip mine it for all it's worth. But I remember, you know, a million texts back and forth, a million conversations, but one of the things when I was grilling you about memories in Studio A at the power station, memories in the power station, one of the things that came up was that you guys would watch The Honeymooners, you know, and then I said, what episode? You told me the episode, and I went and watched the episode, and you know, and then we write that into the movie and create a scene about it that is rooted in the authentic history and shared relationship of these guys. And so that was something that was, you know, that again is a testament to Scott as a director, because, you know, a great director enables and allows the actors to go find the water. Like we're water finders. That's what we have to do. If we don't find the water, the movie that you see isn't alive. And you don't always know where that's going to be or how you're going to find it. So you need somebody really intrepid who is willing to, go out into the unknown and take big risks. And Scott really champions that and allows us to do that.
Well, the collaborative aspect of the picture was night before the bedroom scene. Jeremy's calling me up, and he's calling me every hour. He's got questions about this or the other thing, and he says, "Now, if you were sitting around, what's the song you'd play for somebody if you were trying to save their life?" I says, "Okay," and he hung up, and he called back shortly later. I said, "Well, Last Mile of the Way, Sam Cooke." So we got the song that night, brought it in the next day. Scott was wide open to trying anything. And it's one of the loveliest scenes in the film. And the openness on the set, both with, like I said, the tolerance for Jon and I being there and helping Scott shade something once in a while. But then Scott's total openness to the collaboration between himself and his actors, or himself and Jon and I at different moments, was I haven't seen other movies made, but I have to imagine it was pretty unique and something that I deeply appreciated about Scott. And he was such a generous collaborator, and Jeremy was always. He just kept everything alive and moving and organic. It was quite lovely. A lovely experience for me.
Can I just add to what Bruce was saying, is that the other part of that was there was only one director, and Scott, as open as he was and creative as he was with input, was equally skillful in deflecting the ideas that he didn't like. So it wasn't this a free-for-all, because, and he had just the most charming way of, Scott, what about, he had a great way of sort of turning his back and pretending he didn't hear what you just said. It was artful. And so that was part of it. It wasn't just, just listening. You turned your back on a few good ideas, by the way.
As someone who loves music, one of my favorite scenes in the film is the scene with Jimmy Iovine on the phone talking to Jeremy Strong. And I just want to, I'm hearing this, and I'm like, this is the best Jimmy Iovine impression I've ever heard. And then it was actually him, and I was like, this is incredible. Is that what he said on the phone that day?
We tried to get him to read the script, but he just, he's intractable.
One of one, Jimmy Iovine.
He was in Malibu at his beach house, and the reception was coming in and out, and we were trying to get sides in front of him.
Feeding him dialogue.
Scott was like, Jimmy, just say, and he was just saying, trying to get him to say this one line. But, then he just, it's all just true on the phone. So it just went on, and it was a wonderful moment.
I don't know that an actor could have ever captured Jimmy Iovine's
definitely
spirit.
Not
like that.
No,
definitely not.
But Jimmy's comment, what he said to me when I saw him afterwards, after he saw the film, he says, "I steal the picture." He says, "The picture's a serious picture. I'm the comic relief. I mean, that's what everybody's going to talk about, right?" He was, there you go. He just kept going.
Odessa, your character Faye brings a new emotional layer to Bruce's story. What was the most surprising thing about working on a story like this, and did it change the way you think about art or success?
Two very big questions.
Wow.
I'm wondering, I think that the most surprising thing, I kind of talked about this a little bit last night, Scott, was that this is my first studio picture, if you will.
but made with independent spirit.
Made with, well, that's exactly right. I didn't know what to expect, and I'm very used to working on independent films where everything feels very insular, and you're kind of in this bubble, and you have this family for 6 weeks to 3 months or whatever it is, or actually usually far less time. And I really didn't know what to expect coming into a production like this with this kind of scale and the people involved. And what I was so surprised about was how well protected we all were when we were on set in that kind of creative nucleus. And that's Scott, that's what Scott does, because he understands what actors need in order to do the best job that they can and make the best work that they can. So it never felt, the set never felt as big as I thought it was going to, but it felt like it could hold all of us, but also keep us away from the wolves, so to speak. That was the first part of your question. What was the second part of the question?
Art and success. Do you look at it
and how I
differently?
feel about it? Well, yeah, I mean, I think that I felt myself being incredibly inspired by what Bruce was going through during this time. And actually, I think that what's interesting about the film and the way that Scott decides to tell this story is that it's not at all about Bruce's success at this time. I think that that's context of it, but it's actually about his own perceived insufficiencies in how he faces that, and far more about the art as opposed to the success. And I find it really inspiring to consider that even in, I just want to quote the movie, it's like all that's playing through my brain. Even in all the noise, someone is there, someone who has the world at their feet. Someone is just preoccupied with finding the real thing. And I think that that's all I ever want to do.
I think that, the movie's basically about somebody who knows what they're doing 3 hours a day, but has no clue as to what they're doing the other 21. And Odessa really, and Faye represents those other 21 hours, where a real life awaits you, but you just can't find it. And that was a big part of what the picture is about, and she does such a wonderful and lovely job holding up that end of the picture. She just was fantastic. Thank you, Odessa.
Odessa's amazing.
I wish I could talk to you all night. And if I could, I would. But sadly, I can't, because you all have busy lives. But what I do want to say is, I want to say thank you for making this film for creatives and artists out there. I think that in the world today, there is a lot of obsession with virality, with money, with numbers, and the fact that, Bruce, you had this strong vision, and you held to that vision even though everyone around you was saying, this doesn't make any sense. Nobody saw it yet, but you did, and you went for it anyway. To see that on screen and to see what came from it is incredible. You have famously said that if you want to enjoy your work, listen to anything, but if you want to understand your work, listen to Nebraska. And I want to ask if you could tell your younger self back then, 42 years ago, the man sitting in New Jersey making Nebraska, that a film would be made about it one day, what would you say?
I never would have believed it. 31, I mean, that's my kids' age. My kids are 31, And, but I knew it was the right record at that moment. I didn't know what people would make of it, but I was very sure about the music that was on it, and that it was the best that I could do. And I guess throughout my career, I've had a deep-seated fear of having the opportunity and then not getting it right. I've had an opportunity to walk into people's lives, to have a certain kind of impact. And I get to do that not just once. I get to do it night after night after night after night. It's an incredible gift to be able to do that. And so I was always concerned about just getting it right, getting it right, so that one night when I come out and I meet you, You will leave the theater, or you will leave the arena, or with something, hopefully, that you enjoyed and were entertained by, but also something that will last inside of you, a certain energy, a certain vision that you can take home with you and apply to your daily life. So having the opportunity to have that kind of impact on someone, the way music had that kind of impact on me, I knew it could be done because it happened to me. I heard a record on the radio, and I knew that there was a larger world waiting out there than the one that I'd grown up in. And the thing I like about the film is it's not a film about the success you had previously, or, you know, there's a touch of that just for context, but it's really just about human struggle that everybody here is going through, you know? And there's no way around it. As Jeremy said, you can only go through it. Every single one of us has to find out what are we gonna do with those other 21 hours in the day.
Amen.
Thank you all so much to this incredible panel here, the cast of the film, the director, the boss, Bruce Springsteen as well.
Thank you. Thank you.